Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Benjamin de Ridder. I'm a forestry officer working for the Food and Agriculture Organization for the Forest Landscape Restoration Mechanism. I welcome you today to join us in this webinar on sharing experiences from the Restoration Initiative project in Sao Tome and Príncipe. We will learn more about setting up of a carbon credit system in collaboration with Acorn Rabobank with local farmers. Before starting, I would like to just say a few words about logistics. This webinar is being recorded, and also you can follow this webinar both in English and French. So below you will see a little icon from a globe, so you can choose your own channel, English or French. We also have a specific part of the webinar where you can actually put in your question and answers box. So please, during the webinar, if you have questions that you would like to get answered from our panelists, put your questions in the question and answer box. Also in the chat, you can mention where you are from and introduce yourself. Today we have a distinguished panel of speakers or experts with us today. We have Marco Pagnani. He's a senior international consultant and chief technical advisor for our Restoration Initiative project in Sao Tome. We also have Sofia Corral, who is an account manager for Acorn Rabobank for Lusophone countries in Africa. She's here as well with her colleague Joost Hammerlink in charge of partnerships. And also we have Mayor Antonio, who is part of the Directorate of Forests and Biodiversity in Sao Tome and Príncipe. He's also the national focal point for our Restoration Initiative project in Sao Tome and Príncipe. Just to give you a brief, quick snapshot, the Restoration Initiative program is a global program financed by the GEF, the Global Environment Facility, and is a program that has been run the last 5 years in 10 African and Asian countries to really scale up restoration activities in the countries, working on different aspects such as policies, enabling environment, sustainable financing mechanisms, implementation of restoration activities on the ground, and also as well monitoring of it. So today you will hear about our experience in Sao Tome. So I will first give the floor to Marco Pagliano, who will set the context in Sao Tome. Thank you. Over to you, Marco.
Yes, Benjamin, thank you very much. Maybe we can start putting the first slide of my presentation on the screen. My intervention will be short. I just want to give you a flavor of what our project is, and also explain why we got the idea of embarking into this process of payment for ecosystem services with the Rabobank Acorn. So here you can, in this welcome slide, you can see the map of the country. It's the second smallest country in Africa, and it is composed of 2 islands, the island of Sao Tome and the island of Príncipe. And it's the country is located in the Gulf of Guinea in Central Africa. Second slide, please. The project in a nutshell. This is a forest landscape restoration project, right? So the core of the project is about restoring forest ecosystems in the country. It started in January 2019 and it's planned to end in December 2025 after an extension was agreed with the GEF. The main partner of FAO in this project is the Ministry of Environment through the Directorate of Forest and Biodiversity, represented here by my colleague Mayor Antonio, who will be speaking after me. When we started our project in Sao Tome, FLR, Forest and Landscape Restoration, was an almost unknown concept, and it was not practiced, basically. There were actions of planting tree, but they were scattered and where they were not following, let's say, a precise strategy. So the first 2 years of the project were devoted to setting up the framework for FLR in the country. We produced a national FLR plan and a seedling production plan, 2 documents that are available if you would be interested in receiving them. And we mapped 4 priority landscape that cover about 1/3 of the country, 3 on the islands of Sao Tome, 1 in the islands of Príncipe. And then, let's say, after the second year of the project, we started the practical work in the field when all conditions were there in order to start the field work. So far, we have restored 9,000 hectares of forest landscape through direct planting, natural regeneration, and assisted natural regeneration. And our goal is to have 12,000 hectares under restoration by the end of the project. So we get our seedlings from a network of more than 70 public and private nurseries. And so far we have produced around 220,000 seedlings belonging to 80 different species. This is a major achievement in the project because the baseline was very few nurseries owned by the Directorate of Forest and very few species, less than 10, produce to do planting in the country. But apart from this core objective of the project, we have other actions, notably maybe the ones that I want to mention to you is a strategic partnership with the Central Bank and the Association of Sao Tome Banks to improve, let's say, the financial framework that is related to management and restoration of forests for small and medium-sized enterprises. We worked with community as small entrepreneurs through a system of grants for bankable projects and projects related to non-timber forest products. And we created an FLR platform that works at a national level, including different sectors of the society, from the government at different levels to the regions, to NGOs, economic actors, even the police and the army, and so on. So last slide on my side, please. Now, why did we embark into this system, into this scheme of payments for carbon sequestration with Acorn Rabobank that will be described in details by the colleague Sophia from the Acorn scheme? Well, let's be honest. The basic assumption was that FLR is a long process and it is difficult to achieve sustainable results in the lifetime of one project. A framework of 4 or 5 years is not enough to achieve all the objectives that are usually very ambitious that are spelled out in the project. So since the early stages of TRI, our team committed to identify opportunities to extend the impact and work of the project beyond its duration. So basically what we wanted to do is make sure that the project will last, that the actions of the project would last beyond the end of the project itself, and that this would be a long-term process that would consolidate all the achievements that we might reach, and also the actions that we start without completing them. So we adopted a two-pronged strategy in order to achieve this. The first was tap existing international resources. So we successfully filed a new project to the GEF8 through the Ecosystem Restoration Integrated Program. And that will probably start in 2025 because we were successful in this application. And the objective of applying again to the GEF was to ensure a steady flow of resources to the institutions and other partners that are engaged in the project to make sure that they would be able to keep working beyond the duration of TRI. The second leg of the strategy was introducing the first payment for ecosystem services scheme in Sao Tome. So that's why we started a dialogue and negotiations, and eventually we entered a partnership with Acorn Rabobank and Plan Vivo to certify the agroforestry land restored by our project and generate long-term revenues for farmers through the sale of carbon credits in the voluntary market. So basically, this second leg, let's say, of our strategy was to keep the momentum among the grassroots beneficiaries and the communities, and demonstrate them the practical benefits of forest and landscape restoration. So this was the reason why we decided to embark into this project. It is a matter of sustainability of the work that we've done so far. And I think that I can leave it here because there are many panelists with lots of things to tell you. If you need more information on the project itself or some of the issues that I've touched briefly in my presentation, you're very welcome to ask questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark, for giving this snapshot overview of the Restoration Initiative project in Sao Tome and also underlying this need for sustainability in the long term for restoration activities. I'm happy to now give the floor to Mayor Antonio to provide the point of view and the vision of the government of Sao Tome on this approach used by the TRI project. Over to you, Mayor.
One moment, please.
No problem. You need to share your presentation.
I can share presentation. You can share for me.
Okay, Catherine, can you share his presentation?
Yes, fantastic.
Okay.
Meanwhile, to the participants, please don't forget we have a Q&A box. If you have any questions during the different presentations, you can insert your questions there for our Q&A session later on.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so
It's this.
okay, so you made it, right?
Yes. Okay, thank you. Everybody, I am Mayor Antonio. Marcos present the country and the project TRI in Sao Tome and Príncipe. I am here to present the DFP and the government view to the carbon market, especially then the forestry aspect. Next. Sao Tome and Principe will know it is a beautiful country with the forestry, pleasure forestry. I can with the forest secondary, the natural forest, the shadow forest, and the obos is natural forest and the mangrove. And it is diverse forest heritage with different typology of forest in the country. Next. But the access of the resource forest to respond the management principles sustainable, it's not good. Growing and the increasing competence demand for food, energy, and the space are accelerating the degradation of natural resources and ecosystem. We see to the growing diversion of forest landscape and Sao Tome and Principe in the natural park, so also in the natural park. Next. So the major problem of that have contributed to the forest and linkage degradation. It is this problem. It is the overexploitation of resources, agro-industrial intervention, palm oil, the unsustainable exploitation of inert material, construction of infrastructure, roads, housing, hotel production, and the energy transportation. This contributed to degradation the forest and landscape. Next. So it requires a great deal of effort and knowledge from the forest sector to respond to the most complex issues, which involve the interrelationship of many variables. Next. So next. So the country and the DFP, we think the state national capacity, we think the carbon market is one solution to resolve the problem. The carbon market can be a solution for staking financement or forest management. The carbon marketing can help provide incentive for the community and the farmer. Next. So today, to have that, the government, we have a small country. We have a small country, but we have not, we have a small country, we have the inventory, GIG inventory reference mission. We have development, the forest restoration action, but we need the specific legal framework to the market carbon. Next. So we have the ERPP prepared. We have every area action carried in Sao Tome. We have the RPP the preparation. We have the GHG inventory. We have the NDC prepared to action to carry out of the carbon market. Next. But next, the government think it is necessary to do the action for the population. For this, we medium or long term, it is intended to plan of utilize the carbon market or new marketing machine. Establish a multi-sectorial team for the Article 6 and the carbon market. Strengthening national capacity for negotiation. Create the specific law of the carbon market. Promote pilot initiative that benefits the rural population. The government think we are not just thinking about the carbon market issue, but our conservation and the carbon market can be used to improve the life of the rural population, while maintaining sustainable forestry and management. The government think the focus is not the market carbon, but use the carbon market to the rural development. It is the focus of the market carbon for the government. For that, it is necessary to promote the pilot initiative. It can be benefits through the rural population. So next, we have carried out the Sao Tome with the Acorn initiative Acorn. I think Sophia can be explained the initiative Acorn very well. I do not explain that, but it is the first initiative to improve the rural capacity to development, the forest development in Sao Tome Principe. But because it is necessary, use the carbon market to improve the life of rural population. Next. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Meyer, for really summarizing the government's really strong willingness and demand to take on this journey and try to capture some of the benefits of the carbon market and lead it towards really the rural development and the farmers, and as such improving forestry and agroforestry as such. I would now like to give the floor to Sophia Carroll to really take us through of what's the Acorn Rabobank has been doing so far in Sao Tome, and about their approach and what's ahead. Thank you, Sophia.
Thank you so much, Benjamin. I'm just gonna share my screen. Are you able to see?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
is it in presentation mode?
Not
or
yet.
Is it...
Not yet.
Okay. I think I also do it a bit differently. 1 second. Okay, how about now?
Yes. Perfect.
Okay, super. Great. So yeah, I'm here on behalf of Acorn. We are a part of Rabobank, which is a cooperative bank in the Netherlands. We work on supporting the livelihood of smallholder farmers. and providing clients with high integrity carbon removal units. So we are a part of Rabobank, part of the innovation sector. At Acorn, we have three main missions. One is kind of alleviating food insecurity, land degradation, and climate change through the planting of new trees. We work specifically on carbon removals. So there are projects that work on avoided emissions. So for example, reducing the number of cars or reducing the number of industries that produce carbon. We actually remove carbon through planting trees. We work on a transition from monoculture to agroforestry. So this is why it's such a good fit for Sao Tome, because it lines up very well with the kind of goals that Sao Tome also has. So in this, we kind of support projects in this transition of only having one crop to having multiple crops. But I'm sure many of you are agroforestry specialists, so I will not go too deeply into this. So I'm going to share that same slide that Mayor kind of shared at the beginning, but our proposition starts with farmers. So farmers plant trees and kind of develop agroforestry designs. I'll go into it deeper of how we are doing it specifically in Sao Tome. Then we have a local partner. In this case, it's DFB. They support us with kind of reaching those farmers and doing the agroforestry component of this project. Then we have Acorn. Acorn measures the biomass, calculates how much carbon has been sequestered from 1 year to the next. We do this using satellite-based technology, and we have a certifier called Plan Vivo. Then once we have measured and we generate CRUs, which is carbon removal unit. So from now on, CRUs or CRUs. We have certain buyers that buy these units with the goal of becoming carbon neutral. Once these CRUs are sold, the money flows back in 80% to the farmers, 10% to the local partner, and 10% to Acorn. So clear to make it clear, the project is really for the farmers as they are the main beneficiaries. Yeah. So specifically our work in Sao Tome, we have kind of a long onboarding process. I won't go into it too deeply, but there are many steps in onboarding a new project. So we have many different things that we need to check. We also need to get the project verified by Plan Vivo and get government approval. So I've kind of highlighted the 3 steps we've gone through in Sao Tome. Basically, we've assessed that this project is viable for Acorn. We've also already gained government approval, and we are right now at the stage of almost signing the partnership agreement officially with DFB. So we have done 2 missions so far in Sao Tome. In the first mission, it was really establishing and understanding what is it viable to bring the Acorn proposition to Sao Tome, which was very positive because as Mayor kind of described, Sao Tome has a lot of forestry already and many farmers already plant in agroforestry style. So in this sense, we kind of deemed it as a very good opportunity for us to collaborate. We are working with 3 cooperatives, farmer cooperatives, 2 cocoa cooperatives, and 1 coffee cooperative. So these are SECAB, SECAC, and SECAFEB. They are based on Sao Tome Island, but dealing with these different crops. So kind of going there was also assessing, okay, how is this going to work? Who is kind of responsible for what? Then kind of decisions were made. So we decided that we will indeed work with DFB. At the time, we said, okay, we might need there to be a larger capacity on the ground as this project is quite intensive. There's a lot of documents, a lot of certification needs. So for that, we asked DFB if they might be able to hire an extra person to kind of deal with Acorn, which they have done. And since we have been working strongly with them for this whole year, so that's great. We also decided together with Marco and FAO that it would be good to have a demo plot. So once we have established an ideal agroforestry system that we would like to implement together with DFB and FAO, it would be good to kind of create a demo plot so that farmers can learn from that and actually see the benefits of planting in this organized manner. And that is something we are currently still working on. From this mission, we decided definitely we will start working. Once DFB hired this extra person. We conducted a second mission. In this case, it was to kind of fulfill that documentation, as you can briefly see here, from Plan Vivo. And then we also had various conversations with the ministry. They were incredibly enthusiastic. As you can see in this photo, it was a meeting with the minister. She was incredibly enthusiastic about the proposition, and we have her full support, so that is quite wonderful. We also had various meetings with the cooperatives to establish what the responsibilities and whether we had their support, as that is quite a vital part of this proposition, as the cooperatives are the ones closest to farmers. So, for example, for farmer trainings or farmer messaging, it is super important to kind of already go through the channels that are established in the country. So in that sense, through cooperatives and through DFB. So those were like 3 things that happened during this mission. Then in the second mission, we did a preliminary assessment of how much biomass there is in every farm. So from this graph, you can briefly see exactly how much carbon based off the trees that we have and what we hope to plant. It's an estimation of how much carbon can be sequestered with the system. And what that tells us is more or less if we multiply that by the amount of carbon credits. So I think I didn't explain that too well, but right now we sell with a minimum price of 20 for each carbon removal unit. So that is 1 ton of carbon sequestered. And in the last batch, we actually sold it for 40 euros. So we do see that this price is increasing. So before starting a project, we conduct a business case to try and understand how much biomass is already on these farms, how much biomass will we be adding to these farms, so how many trees will we plant with that agroforestry design. And from there, we can understand how much or what the project revenues will be for farmers, for the local partner, and for Acorn. So this assessment is quite an important one. It is something that we are still doing, but that was kind of the main goal of our second mission, was to understand, okay, what will this agroforestry design look like and how much biomass do we already have on these plots? Then the last thing we fulfilled was a Rabobank customer due diligence. So since we are a bank, for every partner we work with, we also have to run a due diligence. It's kind of part of our internal processes, but this was also something that we successfully, let's say, accomplished during this mission together with DFB. So let's say, what are the next steps in this project? We have a little bit of some timelines for towards the end of the year. We're almost there, let's say. We would like to have Plan Vivo approval. So based on these documents that we filled in when we were there and we've been working on ever since, we hope to submit this to Plan Vivo as soon as possible and gain their approval. Then we hope to actually sign the partnership agreement with DFB. So this would make the partnership like very formalized, and we would be able to start actually having these farmer messaging and farmer engagement meetings. And then we also hope to conclude the agroforestry design and the business case. The business case being understanding the revenues that will flow back to the farmers, and the agroforestry design is a key element of making that happen. So we're very close to all of these goals, but this is what we hope to finish before the end of the year. In 2025, we hope to actually begin the farmer onboarding. So how this works is that we have an app developed by Acorn that we use to kind of measure out each polygon of where the farms are. So using satellite imagery, we are able to see exactly where those farms are, and we are able to measure for each farmer how much carbon was sequestered from one year to the next. So for this to be the case, this is what we call kind of farmer onboarding, and that is something that we hope to do in the first few months of next year, as well as, of course, explaining the project to farmers and seeing who would like to be part of it. We also sign directly with each farmer. So we have a participant agreement that each farmer must consent to their data being used and to their farms being measured using satellite imagery. So it's kind of like a contract between farmers and Acorn to ensure that every farmer has given consent for this to happen. Then in the second half of the year, we hope to hopefully conduct a first measurement to try and understand, okay, officially how much biomass there is and what credits we can already create and sell, and kind of prepare ourselves for that first measurement. That does take like some time, so we do need to conduct a ground truthing, and there is quite some internal processes that we need to take before we can do this. And we want to plan how we want to do the payments. So we can either do payments where that 80% is fully given to farmers or in cash, or we also can change it to in kind, so a percentage of that being paid in seedlings or trainings per community. So these are kind of like the conversations and the decisions that we hope to start taking next year. So we've learned a lot in the different projects we have. Acorn works worldwide. We are now working in Sao Tome. We work all over Africa, Latin America, and Asia. So we've learned a lot in the projects we've had. So I kind of wanted to share some of these lessons learned that we've had. We also specifically work with FAO in Mozambique as well. So that's also where this is coming from. We found that managing farmer expectations is something very important, making sure that farmers understand when they will be paid. So it's a one payment per year, and for what exactly. So understanding that kind of a carbon revenue is a bonus to having this agroforestry design, but it's not the main incentive. And understanding as well that if they take care of the trees, they might see a payment. So kind of keeping it as this kind of bonus or incentive payment for maintaining the trees, but really the main benefits of having this project are the agroforestry benefits and like agricultural benefits. We've also found that having support of the government in setting this up is very important. So in this case, Sao Tome is a great example of that because the minister has been very enthusiastic about this proposition, which is great for us and for the project. It's also important to have clarity on what the carbon legislations are in each country. So since the carbon market is quite new, it is difficult sometimes to maneuver and understand, okay, what are the legal implications of this market? And I think a lot of African countries are now pushing through the legislations. I know in Kenya, for example, this is something that is being, let's say, created quite quickly. And it's also a bonus of having this project, for example, in Sao Tome, where they are now working on the legislation for carbon. But this is something important to already know before coming into the project, of course. It's also very important to kind of have a local presence on the ground. So we are based in Utrecht, but we do, let's say, conduct field visits quite often. This is super important of getting to know the team and understanding the context that you are working in. In this sense, we have learned also that working with FAO has been a great thing for us, as FAO has a great reach of stakeholders in each country, and they are already very well established. We also learned that having a focal point within FAO is also very important, or within that local organization. And this is why we have asked DFB to hire an external person to kind of deal with the Acorn related documents and mechanisms, which they have done. So in this case, it's in DFB. For example, in Mozambique, we do have a focal person within FAO to do the Acorn related documentation. So we've learned that this is important, but absolutely, we are so happy working with FAO. Let's say we have had a great experience so far, and the projects are all running very well. So yeah, that was my presentation. Thank you so much for listening. And if you have any questions, do feel free to reach out to me or Joost or type in the chat. We are always here to answer everything. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Sophia, for this rich presentation. I'm sure there will be many questions. To start off, I already got some question received because you mentioned as lessons learned, you need to manage the expectations from farmers very closely. How do you do that? And also you mentioned that there is a demo plot. Does it mean that farmers must exactly follow the same demo plot? So will they have affect their productivity? So all that, how do you manage the farmers? That's maybe first question to you, Sophia.
Yeah, great
Or
question.
Joost.
Yeah, great question. I'll tackle it, and then Joost, if you have something to add. Yeah, so farmer messaging is very key. I think farmer choice is very important, making sure that farmers understand that this is their decision, and that if they wish to plant these extra trees, they are more than welcome to. Using a demo plot is extremely valuable, as they are able to see actually what are the benefits, and kind of having, well, we haven't, let's say, started the trainings yet in Sao Tome, but in other projects, we have trainings on that demo plot and kind of explaining what the agricultural benefits are. So that's kind of how we work it. I don't know, Joost, if you have something to add.
Yeah, so maybe to add to the second part of your question also, Benjamin, thanks for the question. Very relevant indeed. We see this challenge in most of our projects. We do not expect all the farmers to exactly adopt what is happening on the demo farm. The demo farm is really more of a training tool, also to show like, okay, what can the different benefits be? What are practices that are being applied? What is the impact of that? But we see very often in a single project that we always make an agroforestry design where we give recommendations together with the local partner. We set this up and we give recommendations. Okay, this is a design that may work. But then if we look at the farmers that are participating, no two farmers are the same. So for every individual farmer, it will depend a lot on what is already on the farm, what practices are already being applied, and then what is the best option for that farmer. So very often what we see in practice is indeed these demo farms are very useful to kind of like as a training tool to show the impact also. But when it comes to starting the transition to agroforestry, training these farmers and offering them, for example, different packages of seedlings, we usually see that within a given project, there can be 3-4 different options for the package, and it can be discussed with the farmer which package makes most sense for him.
Yeah, just to add to use the different farmer packages, I think Sao Tome is an excellent example of that. In Sao Tome, we have farmers that have all sorts of different species. I think the list that we were making with DFB and FAO is quite extensive on the number of species that we want to kind of offer to farmers and make sure that it fits their ecosystem, let's say, and what they want to create. So, yeah.
Thank you for these replies. Another questions in the chat box. One is on linked. Maybe Mayor can answer this, or other ones. How do you think the new legislation you talked about will affect the project in the near future as you roll it over? Because you said an enabling environment is key, and also Sophia mentioned that you say it's a very good moment for you to come in Sao Tome because the government is open now to think about the legislation and develop it. So Mayor, if you could answer that.
Je vais essayer de parler en français. Je pense que c'est plus clair pour moi
Ok,
en français.
pas de problème.
Ce que je peux dire, c'est qu'on n'a pas encore d'expérience dans les marchés carbone. Pour ça, on a commencé avec Acorn pour un projet pilote petit avec les agriculteurs pour voir comment ça marche. Et dans ce même avec l'expérience d'Acorn, on va nous aider à faire la loi. Aussi, on a demandé des expériences des experts du Brésil. Et le gouvernement sont en train aussi de parler avec d'autres experts pour voir comment on peut améliorer la loi et faire une loi qui peut répondre aux défis de la Convention des Nations Unies pour le changement climatique et aussi aux défis du pays du développement. Parce qu'on ne peut pas commencer seulement à faire les lois pour la question du changement climatique, mais aussi pour répondre aux besoins de la population. Parce que pour la population, si on va dire qu'on va séquestrer le carbone, tout ça, ce n'est pas plus important s'ils ne regardent pas quels bénéfices on va voir sur le terrain. Pour ça, la loi doit répondre à tous ces besoins-là. On n'a pas encore de loi, nous sommes encore en train de préparer la loi, mais ça, c'est le défi et c'est ce qu'on propose de faire. Merci.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, it's indeed very important to really link the development of the policy environment to the needs of the local people, local farmers. And then another question linked to this on your thoughts on the long-term sustainability of the approach, because Sao Tome is a small country with limited forest areas. So the question is, for how long can farmers be planting trees to benefit from this from these cells of crew? So I don't know if maybe you also, Sophia, can take this.
Sure. Thanks. You want to go ahead, Sophia, or?
No, go ahead, yes.
Okay, that's perfect. Thanks for that question, Benjamin. Again, good question indeed. So the number of trees being planted is something that we're analyzing at the moment. So we're checking, okay, what trees were already planted, how many trees can we add additionally, what makes sense, not just for the carbon, but also for the other crops that are being planted. So we see carbon only as one little piece of the puzzle. And we want to promote an agroforestry system that can bring in different benefits to the farmer. When it comes to the carbon being planted, if we are seeing an agroforestry design where sufficient trees are being planted to actually generate that carbon on a year-by-year basis, we can see that the benefit comes in over a period of at least 15, 20, sometimes even 25 years, depending a bit on the number of trees that are being planted and the types of trees that are being planted. But if sufficient trees are planted, those trees will grow over a longer period of time. And we do see in general that it will take around 2 to 3 years after the first trees are planted. It will take around 2 to 3 years for the first carbon to come in. Then that carbon sequestration of the farm will go up and stabilize usually after around 5 years. And then there is usually what we call a crediting period, because we do the measurement once per year for all the farmers. So during that period, after the first 5 years, we see a rather stable period of around 10 to 15 years, where we expect these farmers to be generating an income from the carbon. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, José, because we had another question in the chat asking, like, for how many years do the agreements run with the farmers? So how many years do they receive payments? So they can get an agreement on a yearly basis, or is it for 25 years immediately?
A standard option is 20 years, indeed.
Okay, 20 years. Let me see, any other questions? You already answered someone in the chat, but maybe you can say it in as well in person. Like, there was a question about the Plan Vivo certification cost. How much does it cost, and who's covering the certification cost?
Yeah, I think I already typed it in the chat. Indeed, a good question again. So one of the things that we do differently than a lot of other certifications is we don't charge any upfront certification costs. So we want to make this work for the smallholder farmers, and we want to remove as much barriers as possible. And one of the barriers that we saw is, for example, the certification cost. So we don't charge the participant nor our local partner. We don't charge anything. We won't send an invoice. So we cover the cost of the certification. And by doing a group certification for a large group of farmers, we can actually keep those costs relatively low. And then we cover those costs only after the sales of the carbon. As Sophia explained, we keep the 10% of the carbon sales, and we use that to cover the cost of the monitoring and certification.
Okay, that's clear. One other question is about from Hélène. What is the projected proportion of the farmer's income from their primary agriculture production versus projected carbon income? Do you have an idea on that? Understand this change over time, but if you can provide estimates for 3, 5, 10 years.
Yes, this is a very difficult question to answer, like in terms of a percentage of income, because that depends also, of course, on the crop that farmers are farming, and those crop prices, they can of course fluctuate as well. So cocoa prices may be very high one year and maybe very low the next year. So it's a bit difficult to give a percentage that would make sense for all the farmers, because we're not just working with cocoa farmers, but also with coffee farmers or maize farmers, work with a lot of different crops. But what we can say, let's say in specific amounts, we see that the performance of farmers across Africa in this case is typically, if the farmers apply all the agroforestry practices and the good agricultural practices, we see the performance based or depending on the location and the crops that we're working with, somewhere between 2 to 5 carbon removal units per hectare per year. And if you multiply that by the sales price, then you have a bit of an idea of what the annual income of a farmer can be. I think maybe that's a bit more useful than giving a percent.
And if I may say, the indicator that this gain is very interesting to the farmers is that we received immediate interest, not only by the farmers, but also by the cooperatives that are joining, that are gathering them. Because even if it may seem that the percentage compared to the main income is relatively low, this is an important source of revenue that they're very interested to get anyway. Also because it doesn't imply an extra amount of work for them. So all of them, when we set up the scheme and we started talking to the farmers, were immediately very receptive to this idea and welcome it very much.
Yeah, and I think to other, I think our main goal always is to treat this as a bonus or an incentive for planting trees, but not the main reason. So it can be thought of like as an extra, let's say an extra income, yes, from carbon, but the main point of the project, let's say, it's to have the agricultural benefits of the agroforestry.
Thank you all. I've got another important and interesting question from Gerald Cairo. What will happen if the farmer will lose all the trees for some reason or so, and before the credit period runs out? So is there kind of an insurance system or not? Or
Yes, happy to take that question. Good question indeed. Of course, we hope that this does not happen, or at least that it does not happen very often. But indeed, there can be cases where indeed an individual farmer may lose part of the trees. So what we do on a project basis, we kind of keep indeed an insurance. We call it a buffer pool. So before we generate the carbon removal unit, when we do the measurement, we deduct 15% of the carbon that's being sequestered on the project level. And we keep that in a buffer pool. And this buffer pool is indeed supposed to function kind of like an insurance in case these events happen. So that also means that the farmers, the individual farmer, when this happens on an individual farm, we will not go back and ask the farmer to refund the payments that he had received. We won't ask him to repay the money. That's covered by the 15% in the buffer pool. So for the individual farmer, it means as soon as, let's say, he is building up a carbon and he gets a couple of payments, and then all of a sudden there is a drop in the biomass, it means that we will not be paying out that farmer until he gets the biomass back up to the level of his last payment. And only then, when he goes beyond that level again, he'll get payments again. But we won't charge any fees to that farm.
thank you for your answer, Joost. We also see there's some people raising hands. Please, could you, if you have extra questions, please put them in the question or answer box or the chat. Then we can reply to these questions. I would like maybe, Sophia, if you could give more information on you were saying the cooperatives and the DFB have got specific responsibilities during the duration. So could you maybe give some more information on what kind of responsibilities they have?
Yeah, thanks. So I think specific to the cooperatives, it's more to do with like that farmer messaging part. So like we have had their commitment in that they will support us in this. So kind of explaining exactly what the project will be, rounding up the farmers in order for them to sign the participant agreement if they choose to do so, as well as kind of supporting us with the planting stages as well. For DFB, it is more like the coordination of the project. So they are the ones that are, let's say, responsible for responding back to us. So we have been kind of submitting and doing this project documentation with them, as well as in the coming years, they will also be responsible for the payments to farmers, as well as for the various reportings per year. So we do have to hold, for example, a project council, 2 project councils per year, in which farmers can voice their grievances and their concerns, and also decide how they would want to be paid, whether it's in kind or in cash, or a combination. In this case, it will be DFB, let's say, kind of doing these or being responsible for these kind of conversations and working directly with us. So that's kind of the structure that we have so far.
So then the funds will flow from DFB to then the cooperatives. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think we're still kind of figuring it out.
Yeah.
Depending on how we decide to set up the project, it might be that DFB pays out farmers directly. It might be that they go through cooperatives. Still undecided. It also depends on whether payments will be in cash or in trainings, because then that changes also the financial flow of things. So still in the works, but we will sort it out next year, I'm sure.
And another question based on that: can individual farmers decide on this in cash or in kind, or must they come as a group package? Because I understand if 99 farmers want to be cash paid and only one farmer in kind, it might be difficult to manage that.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's one of the reasons why we hold project councils, is to decide that on
Yeah.
community or project level. So it depends, let's say, what individual farmers want, but overall they do have to decide as a collective.
Okay, thank you. I don't think I see any other questions for the moment. So if any other question remains, please put them in the chat now. Otherwise, I think we will close this webinar. First of all, I would like to thank the panelists for their presentation and for their insights. I also would like to thank every one of you connected today to learn more about our ongoing process. You've seen that we have embarked on a longer journey together with Acorn and DFB and the cooperatives and the farmers. So I'm sure once we progress throughout the different steps towards the first payment, we will definitely again reach out to the global audience and share our experience and approach and results. But I would like to thank you again, all of you, for your attendance. I said the presentation and the webinar is recorded, so we will share with you the recording as well as the presentations for your information and follow-up. So don't hesitate to contact any of the speakers or ourselves for further questions if you have them. Thank you all and have a nice day.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.